Hello, I'm Dan Brock. This is Cezanne's Conversations about his Bajoran Context, Episode 3. We're going to talk today to two individuals who are old-time, long-time friends of Cezanne, and they have worked with Cezanne on a couple of different levels and have known him, of course, for many years. Barbara Becker and Lance Hurd. These two individuals will join us, and you'll get to hear some of their questions and comments about the work of Cezanne. And of course, we're going to hear from Cezanne and his experiences with the Bajorans and Senyas. Here we go. Episode 3. I'm Dan Brock. Please enjoy.
Wow, you guys got all kind of space stuff. I'm the only one on Earth.
Hey, well, we had to get in with the groove, Oh, did you see Z? This is my vortex cup. You reach over here. Wait, let me see. There you go.
That's cool.
Barb and I were playing with that yesterday when we discovered that. It was like, oh, it's cool. It's like we're pulling it out from nowhere,
Oh yeah, and spacecraft keep coming in.
Yeah. Yeah, we were having so much fun.
Is that a Bajoran ship?
Yeah.
I didn't recognize. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's a Billy Meyer playing ship.
There you go.
there you go.
Billy Meyer Bajoran ship with a ruler attached.
Yeah.
I'm Barbara Becker, and my website has a more detailed resume. However, basically, I am a regression hypnotherapist, and I focus on people who are coming to me for star travel, whether they're doing a secret space program or have had ET contact or think they've had ET contact. And I like to attest to Z's veracity. I have known him as my Tai Chi and Qigong instructor and friend for 19 years. And both of these men I've known for a very long time. In fact, I've known Lance even longer. And I love them dearly. And they are an integral part of my spiritual development and my comic development. Okay. Lance?
Well, my name's Lance Hurd. I'm a shaman mystic healer. And I've known Z, I guess it's about 17 years. And he was my Tai Chi instructor. So, it's been a long time. And I'm real grateful to have this opportunity to help Z and his children with what we're talking about as far as the Plagerian diary is concerned, and looking forward to this meeting and to have an interesting time.
Yeah, I'm Zaysen, and basically I'm having a Plagerian experience, and so with these episodes I'm hoping to be able to share some of what I've learned with everybody. And for these two characters, I've only known them for a minute, really. But so I guess would be a good place to start. And if people want to know more, they just got to watch the other episodes.
Okay, that sounds good. Let's jump right into it. Barbara and Lance, let's see what questions you guys have for Cezanne.
Okay. Oh, the first book is out, Plagerian Diaries, and Lance has read this book. And the second book, Plagerian Diaries, Interstellar Divinity, just came out 2 days ago. And I'm familiar with that one. So I have a lot of questions about the second book, but I'd like to start this off with a topic, Z, that you touched on in your podcast with Vivian and Jeff today. And that is about the different types of contact, because I've been sharing this with my groups to open their mind about contact can be more than just physical 3D contact.
Yeah, it's really simple, but people have a hard time accepting, what it is that how they're experiencing things, and so sometimes they miss out on opportunities. It's kind of like prayers, it's considered a miracle when God answers a prayer, right? But in essence, every prayer is answered, because when we pray, we think we know what we're praying for, but what we get is what we want. And so sometimes we kind of miss the connection. So it's more on a soul level, something like in your subconscious, the part of the mind that knows everything about you and your past lives and all these sort of things. That's what sets up the opportunity for whatever it may be that's coming to you. And in this aspect, it's contact, with another race or alien race. And so, no matter what we think we want, we get the contact that we really want. And for some people, it's a physical contact, which I see as something lower, a consciousness, where other people may have ongoing communications with in their mind or through meditation and those sorts of things. And so it really doesn't matter, and it doesn't have to be one way or the other.
Mhm.
Of course, for me, it's just plain fun to be able to do this on a physical level, and where I can share more easily my experiences.
Thank you. And that's like, when I do my regression hypnosis, at the very end of the hypnosis, I will ask for the higher self to give an inspirational message for the client. And just recently, with the permission of the client, I've asked for a mother to come through and to give a message. And she did. And it was very succinct, to the point, and very important for our soul growth. And then also, there was this phenomenon where you can be interacting with someone and an ET can be in their body and talk with you. And that's what happened in the grocery store several weeks ago. I was talking with this woman who looked like what the image you share with me, that looked somewhat like mother. And while I'm talking with this woman in the grocery store, a thought came in and said, "You're talking to mother right now." And I don't remember the conversation. And that kind of reminds me of ET contact, where you don't remember, and then you need to go into like a hypnosis to find that information. And then there's other types of contact where you actually have touch. And I like, Lance, can you share the cool touch that you get from
Yes. Well, it was really interesting. Prior to reading Z's book, I was already working on trying to get a stronger connection and contact to the ETs. And then after I read the book, I read Z's inside of the book. There's a really nice, very powerful meditation that teaches you how to get in contact through gratitude. And so I started doing that. And the first night, actually, Sam Jess, which is one of the people in the book, one of the main people, she like this light in my mind's eye, I had my eyes closed, it just opens up, and it was her face right there, and she was all illuminated, and the hole was all illuminated. I was going like, oh my God, that, she's very powerful at being able to be that bright and come in that strong. And then I had several other ones, like every other day. They would come in, but the one where they touched me, it was real funny. I was laying in my bed, and I was just laying there chilling out, with my eyes closed. And I had one foot under my blanket and one foot flying way out, out from under the blankets. And one of them touched the bottom of my foot with their whole hand and went like this. And I felt it, and I look up, and I thought, well, maybe that's my wife. I look up, nobody, and I go, I know that's you. So, I go, you can't fool me. I said, so then I closed my eyes, and one of them, I don't know which one, it's probably Sam Jess, because she has a very playful energy about her, and she touched my other foot, and of course that foot was raw, so it's very sensitive. And I go like that, and I started laughing. I go, you guys are funny. And then right when I said that, these 3 picture frames appeared in my with my eyes closed, crystal clear, but without the frame. And 2 of her girlfriends and Sam Jess, crystal clear, you can see them crystal clear, came out, and they started going like this and waving their hands like this and stuff. I go, yeah, I see you. I kept going. I said, I'm so grateful to see you. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I've been waiting a long time, which I have. I've been, I've ever since I was very young. I had little tiny like snippets of contact until Michael, the Archangel Michael, he took me by the hand, and he introduced me to the ET people. But it's been and every, they're very slow and very loving. When you do this meditation, it's in Z's book, they're not going to come out and go, I'm here. Here I am, No, they won't do that, because they're very sensitive to your beliefs. They're very loving, very respectful, and very aware. And so it's going to be very, very, for some people it'll be very fast. It depends on what your belief systems are, but other people, it may be very slow. Like it took me years. To get where I am now. So like when this started happening for me, this was like a dream come true. It was like, I've always, because I've known for so many years, and I actually was getting a little frustrated, and I was going like, this is silly. Let's just break that veil down and get it over with. I know you're there, you've been there. I've known you've been there for years. And, so that was how I experienced it in a nutshell. So.
Well, I like to use the example of when me and Sam Jess, when she was like, there was a blessing. I had a blessing because of something that I did, and in that process, they taught me what I call sensing, and it basically comes down to where you got to find gratitude, right? Something that happened to you, in your life that you feel so much gratitude for. And what a lot of people don't know is like our memories are rather faulty in a sense. I mean, we see the picture and we get an imprint of what that event was, and then once we have that, what do we do with it? Well, there's blanks to be filled in, right? And so we kind of filled in those other little blanks, but it's not that it wasn't true or anything. It was what we experienced at that moment. And the one thing that I found was that I went to, my go-to is the first child that I rescued. And, it was a long story, but we did this rescue, and I had this little kid, and she was like 5 years old, and she's yelling and screaming and trying to get away and all that, because she didn't know who I was. And it looked, scary, I guess. And so when I got into the van that was to take us to the safe house, the first stop, it was a long ride, and there wasn't any more room in the van. And so she had to sit on my lap. And so, during the trip, I sort of didn't want to look at her or anything to excite her or anything. So I started to take off some of my garb and everything, and I tried to ignore her as best I could. And then that moment when you feel somebody staring at you and you don't want to look, and then you do, and then our eyes met, and so it just hit me so hard, the about the unconditional love, and that we were experiencing something, and I never felt like that any time in my life, but I knew at that moment, this is what I'm going to do for the rest of my life, is rescue these kids that are destined to die. And, in that moment, I had a picture in a moment. And then with this practice of sensing where you find that gratitude, and this being my go-to, what happens is it starts to transform. It becomes more than real, as though it's happening right at that moment, and I can see more things, and it's not so disturbed. There wasn't any blanks left anymore. I could see wrinkles in her little outfit and everything else, and I could see the the most intense thing is, so it was actually right there happening right then. And then when you get to that moment, whatever it may be, that's when you become open for most anything, healing, and any kind of thing that they're seeking. And the other thing is that you don't have to do any process other than that. You don't have to set an intent or any of this stuff that just makes things more difficult and thicker, more layers to go through in order to get where it is that you're actually seeking to go. And so this one day I wanted, Sam Jess was here at my place, and I wanted to take her somewhere and just so she could experience something here, right? And my place I go to, it's just like secluded little beach, next to the ocean, and so I took her there, which is a whole nother story in my Jeep and all. But we got there, and I put a blanket on the hood, and we're sitting on the hood, just staring out at the ocean and the stars and everything, and it's just an amazing little place. And she goes, "What are you thinking?" As we're sitting there just looking into the nothingness. And I said, "We saw some movement up in the sky." And I said, "Well, I'd kind of like to talk to those people up there." And she goes, "Well, you remember your sensing?" And I said, "Well, yeah." And she goes, "Go there." And so, the intent had already been said. I mean, it's an afterthought in a sense. It's just something that's already there, right? And so I don't have to prepare for that or anything. I just went into the gratitude. And as I get deeper and deeper into this vision of, this thing that took place with me and that little kid, I hear somebody say hello, and it's like somebody's talking right in my ear, saying hello. And it's like I'm in shock, and the first thing that comes to my mind is greetings and salutations, sort of thing. And Homer in space, right? And and in that moment, I look over at Sam Jess, and she goes, "I heard it too," and so I knew I just, that was like my first brief introduction to what is possible. And so, that was like a meeting, of the mind or consciousness. I don't even know how to explain it, because it really doesn't fit in any category. It just was. And so yeah, that just like what you were saying, I mean, it all just comes down to love, and that's what they've taught me most. The one important thing that I'd like to mention too is that in this kind of contact with, at least, like, all I know is these people, right? I don't know, I know a few other species, but for the most part, this is my main contact. And the most important thing that continued the contact with them was because I had to become negative in a sense. I couldn't hide absolutely anything from them. I had to reveal everything. And it was a very difficult thing for me to be able to share with them who I was, because they were lab shipped. They weren't experienced with contact with humans or anything. And so whether it wasn't their job, it just, like the title of the first book, it was accidental contact. And it just grew because I had to release it. There was some things that happened that they were aware of, and I had to come clean in a sense on that. And I knew I can't lie, I can't deceive, I can't, be nice and not mention certain things. You have to be completely revealed to them. in yourself. And without that, it's over in a sense. You have to be real. And so I struggled with that because it was like I don't want to lose contact with these people because they're showing me and sharing with me so much and in this intense love, and helping me redefine what unconditional love is. And so I had to bear myself, and each time I was worried, well, yeah, this is going to be my last trip with them. They're not going to want anything to do with me anymore. And then it always turns out to be the reverse. They feel it, they understand it, and they accept it, because I think that's probably one of the most important things, no matter how the contact comes to you, is to be completely open and completely naked to them.
Wow, that's really wonderful. I've got a question here, along these lines of what you're discussing about connecting with or contacting these other humans. When you're engaging in a connection process with them, do you feel like that you're connecting with a higher self of them, with them personally in a conscious physical sense, in some other spiritual sense, or some combination thereof? Or is there a unity experience in that connection that happens? Can you talk a little bit about that in terms of what goes on? What do you think maybe is going on during your communication with them?
I think it's outside our range, or Homer's range of definition, in a sense, because when I can feel them when they're near, or when they're calling to me or something, I feel static. It's not an uncomfortable static, but it's something else, and where I can feel that or sense it. And as far as the interaction with them, it's just like going over to my neighbor's house or something, somebody that I'm connected to, and like, hey, you guys want to go out and play or whatever, sort of thing. That's the feeling that I get. And, there's a structure to everything there, but it doesn't really feel like it exists. But when it does, it's obvious, and, it's easy to manage through. But it's unconditional. That's the best way that I can explain it. And you have to be to that point where your frequency allows that to happen. And when you're with them, it's like you're one with them. I don't know really exactly how to explain that, except for that it's family. And so my experiences with them is it's not rocket science. You don't have to go through a process, and it's just like calling your neighbor and saying, hey, what's up? You want to watch TV or something. Did that answer it?
Yes, that's great. So let's take it over to Barbara Lance next, I guess. And do you guys have questions here you'd like to ask Z?
I'm going to let Barbara handle
Okay.
the question part. How's that?
Okay.
I got
Okay.
some.
Let's cut to the chase. Z,
Okay.
you went out in outer space.
I'm an astronaut.
You're an astronaut.
That's
So-
right.
So the first way you did that is on a pod. Is that correct?
Yeah. Well, the ship, but to be, on my own was in a pod of theirs.
Yeah. Okay. And one question that we haven't talked about before is when you're out in outer space and you're looking out into the vast universe, do you see stars?
Yeah, but it's different. It's not like here, where we've got all these filters that we look through that help reflect, right, the light that's coming to us over, light years away. Out there, you're more near, and so it's not as populated, I guess, is what you would say. And there's like spaces between that you travel through where there's less, and then there's areas that there's more, and then there's areas where it's like, the Milky Way sort of thing. But yeah, you can see them, just not quite like you do here.
Okay. And when you were standing on the ship looking back at Mother Earth with Hans and Samjes, what color was the Earth or is the Earth?
Pretty much like you see.
Blue?
Yeah.
Right? Oh, okay.
When you're close, it is. I
Okay.
mean, it's there's not much difference now in regard to like these amazing pictures that you see from the Webb telescope and the Hubble. I've never seen any real colors in these things. There, all I see is like clouds. You know, some of it's more white, some of it's more gray. So you got like shadows and stuff. They still look somewhat the same, but not like you see on the pictures.
Okay. And you had mentioned that in your book that you went to the moon.
Mhm.
And did you walk out on the moon?
No, we didn't land or nothing.
Okay.
Sam Jess was just taking me for a ride, and because I kind of wanted in a bet, and and so she took me out, and we flew down close to the moon on the far side and stuff, and we went other places, but it almost felt like surfing. I was just like a little kid, you know. I'm Goose, right, in the back of the fighter jet in a sense, and you know, I don't have anything to do back there but look. And yeah, it was that was, you know, it's kind of funny too. The travel is quite different than I expected because they jump more than you fly. And flying is just to take you to a specific destination. Even though they don't, it's not necessary, they can actually just jump to the location, you know, to the exact location you want to be. But generally they approach. You know, once you've jumped to the neighborhood, then you approach. And I think a lot of that has to do from my conversations with Hans, which was one of them, is that, you know, why do you just want to get there? You know, I mean,
Yeah.
it's fun to move in. And like the one experience that I had, which is kind of odd, is like this, how this stuff works is that uh when you're free floating and like, for instance, I'm going forward, right? And then I want to go really fast and all, and I want to turn, right? You don't feel anything when this is occurring. And so you don't know that you turned. You just
Yeah.
made the motion for it to turn, and it turned, and you don't know. So, and they had told me to get a reference, you know, point. So, you know, like the moon being here. So when I would turn, it would disappear. And that's how I knew that I had turned, because you don't feel anything. And then as far as travel, like what they jump, it's not like the physics and geometry are quite different in space than it is here, even though it's reflective of each other. So things occur differently. You don't need the wormholes. You don't need anything special in order to move from one place to another. Um, it's like a conscious AI that's in control of that. So, like for instance, one of my recent trips in the pod, they explained little. I get more and more details each time I experience something, so that I can, you know, retain it. And there's nothing magical about it in the sense of, you know, being able to do this. Anybody could do it, but there are certain steps. And like the way that it was explained to me, like when you see the plasma like around a spaceship or something, when somebody takes a picture of it, it's a field. And like the pod knows me, and or now they all will. But in other words, they did like a scan without me even knowing of who I am, like being from Earth, and how I think and how I sense things and what I feel. And so when I'm in the pod and I want to go somewhere, it knows and it will protect me. It's kind of like an AI is the best way to describe it, to get it in your head. Yet it's not separate from you. It's all based on you. So like if I say Mars and jump, want to jump, then it will take me to exactly where I want to go. But and if there's anything that would be in the way or something like that, in other words, at the location where I leave to the location where I am, not anything in between, because that doesn't exist, then it would move me or protect me in that sense. Or if I'm going towards something, maybe unconscious or something, it's not going to allow me to crash or anything. So it's self-aware in a sense.
So like a fragment of an asteroid coming towards you, it knows to either move out of the way or to deflect that fragment?
Yeah, because that place will be occupied.
Yeah.
Yeah, where I was going.
From what you're describing of the not having any sensation when you do a 90-degree turn, the closest thing I come to in my own mind is years ago, I went on a hot air balloon ride. And when you're going up, there's absolutely no sensation of movement. You have to look down at the ground, seeing it going away from you. And then your brain says, oh, I must be going up. Is that something similar?
Yeah,
Okay.
except for there's no ground to look at to find out that.
Look at the planet,
mountains,
moon,
no.
stars. Oh, very
And the-
good. You
and the
answered
way
my next question too, so thanks.
Yeah, and the way they travel is different. They don't fold space or anything. I mean, it can be applied in a sense if we knew that geometry or those physics. But the best way to describe it is like you're inside of a diamond, and that diamond each point of that diamond is a location, right? And so you're at this dot and you want to get to this dot, then it's instantaneous. You know, it's fed into, I guess, through the consciousness and the AI reacting to, well, not AI, but the consciousness that you've created within the parameters, and it takes you instantaneously. You disappear in one and end at the other. You know, there was an incident that took place because they had asked me about time and about to figure out what it is, what it means, or what I could know about it. And I couldn't really find anything other than, it's the clock on the wall, like Einstein said. And so, and it's always moving forward according to us. Well, that's not true at all. I mean, there's a lot that goes into this, but we had this thing where, and also, your consciousness and love has a lot to do with absolutely everything and opening the doors to these other places. And so like me and Sam Jess, we just wanted to relax. We wanted to be with each other for a while because we had been separated for a while. And so we go into her room and put up this like lounge chair sort of thing. And I get a coffee, which they got the best coffee in the world. I introduced that to them, so it's my fault. Anyway, I got this full cup of coffee and I'm sitting on this chair and Sam Jess just sits on me. And she opens up the wall so we could see space. And, it's familiar to me to be able to go to a place where I can just zone out. And that's one of the ways I can do that is, to look out into space, look out over the ocean or whatever it may be. And so we're just there and, we're full of bliss, just to be together again. I mean, when I'm away from the family, I feel it. And then when I'm with them, I have this pull back here sort of thing. So anyways, we're in that moment in that place, and we're just, slowly going deeper and deeper. And I drink my coffee, I finish it. And then all of a sudden we're gone. And we're basically in this, the same astral body. Rather than traveling alone, we're in one astral body. And I write in the book all the things that happened, but essentially we went to the void, and then from beyond the void, we went to what would be called the source. And then boom, we were back, right? And then we were like kind of freaking out what had just happened because it's spontaneous. And I think it was because of the love and the gratitude that we were feeling, just to be in this space and to be there. And the door, we hear the door open up, and it's the captain, and I believe it was Laura that were at the door going, where were you guys? And we were looking all over the ship. We couldn't find you. And we're looking at each other kind of confused, like, sorry, we've always been here, right? And I look over at my coffee and it's full and hot. And then no one had brought me a coffee because I wasn't there, right? And the way I explained it was, was able to, after a long period of time and thinking and talking to people, well, it was like a cartoon where you see like Speedy Gonzalez and his feet just start going really fast, but he's still there, and then boom, he's gone, right? Well, when they came in to look for us, we were still there. We hadn't left yet, but we were leaving, and so they couldn't see us, and wasn't aware of them. And then when we returned, I had this full cup of coffee, and the only way I can explain that is when we left, the coffee was still full, and so when we returned, the coffee was there again. So we basically moved through time, in a sense, on this experience that took place.
Time travel.
Kind of different. See, I keep redefining all these terms that I know throughout my life by the experiences that I'm having there. It's not like just one way of seeing something. There's multiple ways to see the same thing. And to each of us, it's just like anything, everybody that reads a book reads the same words, the same thing, but they both have different interpretations. And then a third person, a fourth person, nobody ever reads it the same because it's always connected to you and your experiences in life.
You recently went to a planet in the TRAPPIST system.
I believe it was, yes.
Yeah, I found something on the internet.
Uh-huh.
You can show this.
E.
This is Earth, and that arrow, there's apparently 7 planets in that TRAPPIST system, and you went to 1E. I got that right.
Yeah.
This is like a drawing off the internet, and the scientists are saying that those first 3 of the 7 planets have very little water, and the last 4 probably don't have any water at all.
Mm-hmm.
And you went there, and what did you experience regarding environment?
It's definitely an exoplanet. It has clouds, it has ground, it has water. It's 39 light years from here. And that's one of the other things that they've explained to me, that we have so many inhabitable planets in our neighborhood, and 39 light years is our neighborhood. And it's just that we haven't reached the point where we understand travel yet. And so, but yeah, it was interesting to see, this, and to see the clouds and see water. And, it was 93 degrees the whole time that we were there. And we didn't see we saw plant life, and trees were rather small, 4 to 6 feet, but we didn't see any animals or anything. But then again, we did not get out or anything. It wasn't permitted. I did feel wind, or saw wind, though.
Okay. And what did the bodies of water look like? Were they like little lakes or?
Well, I couldn't tell if it was a lake or an ocean, but there was like a river below us, and it opened up into this large body. And so I swear I could see, we weren't right next to it, but we are at the top of a ridge where we had a bigger view, and it almost looked like there was waves there. So, but the way they explained it to me, there's thousands of these planets in our neighborhood that are inhabitable. Some of them have life, and some of them don't, as far as like animals or humans and stuff, but many of them don't. And so I don't know. There's also places I call flat Earth, and that's a created planet in a sense. It's not like the one that we went to was flat and long. I would estimate maybe 20 miles in each direction from the center. And it almost looks like artist renditions of where they show like a piece of like flat Earth is sort of with a bubble over it hanging out in space, except for there's no bubble or anything. And I got into discussions with the captain about it. And basically what they do is they recreate like a planet in a sense. Like, we have a core on Earth, and it's molten rock that floats throughout, and it comes out sometimes, and it pushes in, outside of the sphere, I mean, the planet or land or whatever you want to call it. And in other words, I keep coming up with the word soup. the soup has to be correct. And so what they do is they just recreated like an earth structure in a sense that creates its own atmosphere, just like the earth did in the way it did it. And, in other words, you get all the soup right. And so like when you're there, you would not know that it's just a hunk of rock in space, because there's an atmosphere. You can see, stars and stuff emanating out in the sky, and you breathe. It's got the oxygen. And so to me, what he said was, the calculations, it needs to be near something in order to create an orbit. And so they put together that soup so that it's going to have the orbit, so which creates the gravity, which creates, the layers and all the atmosphere. So it's most simply put, it is just a recreated planet that hasn't completely formed yet. And it also, as it grows and collects and becomes more like a spherical object, they have to adjust for it so it doesn't interfere with the other celestial bodies in the neighborhood, and that it is able to maintain where it is when it is. So I thought that was kind of cool.
So I've got a quick question about a couple of things. One of the things about this flat Earth concept that you're talking about is the direction that you're taking. It implies that eventually that could grow into an entire world. So is that part of their objective with this, is to form an entire planet out of the soup?
Well, it's a place for people to live too. So they're just recreating an environment that's good for them. And yes, it eventually over millions of years would form to be what we have now, like on Earth and stuff. And that's its planned, the soup that they put together, that's what is going to happen eventually.
Okay, let me ask you another question. Regarding the star system TRAPPIST, I was reading a little bit of what Earth Science is saying about the TRAPPIST system. And supposedly the sun there is far more stable, as it turns out, than our sun in this solar system, and will last many trillions of years, not billions, but trillions, longer than the age of the universe. And so my question would be, did they have any indication about the evolution of life naturally on any of those planets associated with the TRAPPIST system that you were able to visit? Did they say anything about that, the longevity of that system, and how that might be a factor in whether life develops there eventually or not?
We really never got to that point. But like I said, the things that I got from it, I didn't know it was TRAPPIST. They didn't tell me that, but I was able to find it, when just to easy do the math, right? And the reason that they showed it to me in the first place was that it's in our neighborhood and that it would be habitable for us to be there. And then the other planets there all had mining capabilities of ores that could be used, to help, make the life easier and make other things, I guess, but so it's self-supporting in that sense. And as far as the sun goes, it's a lot dimmer. So it's newer, I believe. And so it wasn't as intense. And so it being like a constant 93 degrees, makes it even more likely to be habitable. But, and there's thousands of these. And so basically what I was being shown was, this is possible, and here it is here, and there's thousands of these all in our neighborhood. And so it's just waiting for us in a sense.
Okay. I would guess that Lance may be up here to ask a question now. And
so as far as the environment on the planets, in order for them to create environments that are suitable to sustain life, do they have to create flowers and bugs and things? Because I notice, like here on Earth, for example, there's flowers that look like monkeys, there's flowers that look like hummingbirds, and I look at those and I go, who made those? I bet you I think like maybe some monk or some evolved being, was walking and loved monkeys or something, and created those flowers, and they have a purpose, of course. Everything has a purpose, a ripple effect, so to speak. So what about that? How do they create the environment?
Well, from my understanding, it isn't new things. It's something that was taken from somewhere else, and it was placed on this rock, so to speak, to create something. Like the oxygen and sort of things like that. So it's
I see.
an integrate part of the whole, right?
Yeah,
Each
yeah.
thing there, produces or takes away in order for them to be able to create the environment that they seek.
Okay. And as far as environments are, so I assume that different types of beings have a different environment that's required to sustain their life. Because like in your book, you mentioned about the suits, and there was different suits that create the environment inside of you, so that you can survive when you go on another planet somewhere that, would otherwise not be survivable. So do different beings have different, I guess you might say, environment requirements as far as, like oxygen and.
Yeah, there was a couple things that occurred that I was able to experience, and that was one, like I have to wear a suit in order to be in the pod. Not that it's absolute, but for other reasons it may be. But anyways, it was odd for me because I had to put on this suit, right? And the captain takes me to this room where there's these suits, and they all look like they are for little people, like kids or something. They're tiny, and it was the same suit that when I first experienced Sem Jess, when I picked her up, I could feel it felt like skin. And so it's like, I look at the captain and say, like, really? You want me to get into this? I mean, what are you thinking here? Am I going to shrink or something? And so, and then I was curious about it. It looked like it had a line across here, but I couldn't see any buttons or anything like that. And I didn't quite understand that until this moment when I go to put on the suit, and it was small, like I said. And as I'm putting my legs into it, and thinking, maybe this is a joke, because they do have humor and everything.
Mhm.
And they go, yeah, let's watch the Earth person jump into the suit, right? And so, I'm kind of being cautious, but here I am actually naked and stuff, and I'm putting this on. And as I put my foot into the leg, which the boot was attached, it grew. It didn't stretch. It actually grew. And I could feel in my feet, it was like something was moving in my feet, where it was the shoe was forming to my foot. And I'm pulling it up, and it grows until it's a part of me. And then another odd thing was, like, I put on this helmet, and it's very small. It's quite different than we have, but it has full vision. So I can see just as I do now. If I turn my head, I can see anything. And then but the funny thing is I placed the helmet on. There was a thing like a locking mechanism, but then the suit sort of grew up into the helmet. So it actually became like alive in a sense. But there was also another experience where I'm down in the glades, and they had me go out on my own and get to witness these ships, all these different ships that were together, and which is a whole nother story. But I started to feel warm. And when I started to get warm, I could also start to feel a breeze. And so it was actually cooling me. So it was adjusting to me and keeping me comfortable. It's almost as though the suit is alive in a sense. That's the best I could. I don't see it as AI or anything like that, but I see it as, it was basically alive. It adjusted to me and became part of me. And maybe that's why it feels like skin. And then there was another incident where we had Sam Jess wanted me to meet these people, which comes from another thing where she took me on this little journey through the water, and where she wanted me to meet somebody, and we go down in this ravine and in the pod, and she said, look to my right. And just as I did on the side of this ridge, it was almost as though it opened up, and I could see these three beings in there, what people typically call grays. And, they had three fingers and they waved to me. Well, later, several months later, they wanted to come to meet me, like one-on-one. And so it was kind of like a surprise. She didn't really let on what was about to happen, other than there was somebody coming, to meet with me. And so we go into one of the bays where the pods are and everything. And there was this other room where they had taken me before, which was almost like a simulator in a sense, where there was like a pod and there was no gravity. It was like being in space, so that I could learn how to get in and out of the pod in space and all. And so, I just assumed that's what that room was for in a way. But of course, that's your limited mind, coming from where I am to these people. And so she takes me down in there, and we go in that room, and she does things along the wall, which makes it expand, and it grows outwardly and then widens outside of the ship. So it makes this entire place larger. And it was almost like what I call the holodeck, the easiest word to use, in these other places where they can create everything in a sense, visually. And so while we're in there, and she makes this room a lot bigger, then she starts to add different things like vegetation and all these sort of things. And so it kind of reminded me of near like an island near the ocean or something. And on down through, as you would walk out into the extension, it was almost as like it appeared to be an ocean. And then there was, like large, like palm trees and stuff. And so it was a comfortable environment, in other words, for the people that were coming. And then she showed me something, on this little screen she created. And she goes, this is what's going to happen when they come here. And it showed, it was like a CG thing, where it showed like us sitting on these rocks, and then these other people sitting on the other side of us. And then she colorized it. And so the atmosphere within it changed, so that no matter where we were in there, we would be comfortable with our environments of breathing and stuff, and then they would be comfortable with theirs. It was as though it was an intelligent air or atmosphere within there. And on the little screen that she showed me, it showed different colors. So the environment around them was attracted to their biologicals, and the one with us was a different color because we breathe differently than them. And then so they did arrive, and it was these beings that I had seen underwater. And from what I understand, they are like the creators in the universe. And they came to speak with us. And so as we're there, we got the introduction, and they couldn't speak our language, and I couldn't speak theirs, of course. But because of this mist or whatever that's in the air, it translates, so that when they speak, I hear them speaking English, and when I speak, they hear me talking their language. So it was an intelligent sort of atmosphere, and it was a very interesting meeting, to say the least.
Well, I wish we had one of those here. We could go into any country we want, and just speak our language, and everybody
Yeah.
understands everybody. That'd be wonderful.
But when Sam Jess was explaining it to me, I said, so is it like Google, where it kind of screws up every once in a while? I might say something wrong, and they might want to eat me or something. And she goes, no, it's a little more techie than that.
Hey, I got a question here for you. And this is kind of a general question, and I guess get this specific in terms of instances that you experienced as you can. But I'm curious about smells. What did you smell? sensation did you get olfactory wise when you were in these different spaces? In that space, for instance, where you had the meeting with these other aliens, in the pod, in the smell of the coffee, the smell in when you're in the glade versus when you're transitioning, that kind of thing. Can you talk a little bit about the range of smells that you were picking up while you were in having these experiences with the Plejarians?
Yeah, it's kind of not like, but it is at the same time. Like when you walk into a sauna, right? You walk from a cool atmosphere to a warmer atmosphere, but a moist atmosphere. Well, like when I enter the ship, it's more of a comfortable atmosphere. There's no radical change or anything. It's just pleasant no matter what. And then as far as the smells, it always smells well, but I can't identify what that smell is. As far as the coffee, oh, it's pure heaven. It's an addiction of aroma, right? And then like when we were in that room with those other beings, it was very moist. I could feel and sense the moisture, and I could also recognize certain smells, even though the plants were very similar to here. The way she explained it to me, that they had plants in there that were familiar to all of us, both them and us in our environments. And so when I was in there, I assumed that I was going to register, any of my sensing to be that of closest to mine, and which it didn't smell like a swamp, but it did sort of smell like a beach in a sense, where when you're alone at night, and there was that coolness, but it was also very moist that I felt. I felt like I was breathing in water almost.
What about inside the pods and inside the suit? Did you smell anything inside the suit in terms of anything at all?
No, it was very, very, really neutral. You know, I mean, if I really went deep, it would be I could smell myself in a sense. But other than that, I mean, just
Okay,
like
well,
we all-
hopefully you bathed and before you went.
well, that occurs when you enter the ship.
Yeah,
Oh, good. Well, then there, by default, you're clean. That's wonderful.
yeah. I got a question.
Sure.
Well, it's really not a question, it's a thought. I was wondering if maybe I bet any type of food that you want, that you're familiar with, if you ask for it on the ship, I bet it's going to be the best one you ever had. Because you know what I'm thinking?
Mm.
I bet that ship can read your perception of what you think is the best coffee. And it actually probably analyzes that reality, and it recreates it to exactly what you, and so that's why it will be the best coffee that you ever had, because you did it, you created it, what your perception of it is. That's what I think.
you may be onto something there, but basically in the very beginning, when I went to, the only word I got is replicator or whatever, but whatever it is, but it's a place on the wall. And when I said coffee, I had to kind of explain coffee, and I brought some with me, and so it was able to replicate it and then make it better, I guess, and, or make me think that it was better.
They
Uh,
seed it.
Yeah, but as far as like the food selection, it's everybody can have their own menu. So in other words, if there's some species that's outside of all of us and they come to visit or whatever, their menu can be put into this, and it's like instantaneous. And then the other thing that I found interesting was that when they eat, it's almost like clay. It looks like clay to me, right? And you see all just this glob, right? And that's what they eat. And it's not so much of a sensory to them as it is to us. It's just part of necessity, right? And
Yeah.
so, like, if I want steak, well, I can have it just like I have here on Earth, except for it's picture perfect, right? And it tastes, everything is identical. I mean, it's just
Wow.
great, right? And so I was curious. And so if I don't want the visual side, can I eat the clay? And so uh, it just doesn't seem right in a sense. But so I did it just out of an experiment, and it was exactly the same. Once you put it in your mouth, it becomes that, that
Wow.
flavor and that the texture and everything else. So it's
Well,
freaking cool.
well, that food has got to have some sort of a connection to your consciousness. It must be alive in a sense to,
Well, it must be because of the spaghetti dinner they served you. You didn't
yeah.
bring spaghetti on the ship before.
Mhm.
So it's like the ship replicator device, mechanism, whatever, is
It's-
able probably to go into our experiences that we've had and extrapolate where we really enjoyed a particular flavor or taste. That's what I'm guessing,
Yeah.
because
Well, they do so many absolutely incredible machine things, and as far as like spirituality is one of my favorite things with them, and that is like when they wanted to bless me because of something that I did, and our mother wanted to give me a blessing, and so long story short, to get to the point is that I was on this table, and um, they were different ones of were like touching me in certain places and things, and I just felt like completely out of body in the moment. And then when it was finished, they said, open your eyes. And when I opened my eyes, the whole front of the ship right to my feet was gone. There was nothing there. It was as though space was right in front of me, and I mean, it just after a long ceremony of just pure bliss. And then to be in that moment, like standing on the edge of a skyscraper, looking down, in a sense, your stomach goes right up, but then all of a sudden you just become part of that. And it was just absolutely beautiful. But yeah, the spirituality was another thing that I haven't really got too far into, but it's almost as though the experiences that me and Sam Jess have had surpass the explanation of their type of spirituality, which is very heavy into their culture. Um, it was like after an event that took place with me and Sam Jess, where we traveled to another place, and then we came back, and it was like Sam Jess was possessed after that. We went to this absolutely beautiful place where we just we were blissing out in a sense, and you know experiencing love. And boom, we took off, and we were in this place that these rocks in the middle of this like big bay with an open ocean and mountains on both sides of us and these celestial bodies above us, and it was just absolutely beautiful, and you just wanted to never end that, right? And then we come back, and when we come back, she was like possessed, and she went from room to room collecting everybody. And it was kind of funny because here we go, they're all working, right, and doing their thing, and we walk into one room, and Sam Jess has my hand, and I put mine out, and the next one, and we get this whole train of people until we get to the captain's quarters, and he's sitting there, and he looks at us, and he goes, "Why are you guys glowing?" And and so whatever, and he joins in, and we go out into what I call the living room. I see this lab ship that we were on as a RV, because it all seems to fit in category. And so, anyways, in the living room, plus it makes it easy to understand. We're in this living room, and we all circle around, and we get down, and we're all connected, and it was like almost instantaneous. Once we made that connection, everybody has this joy about them, right? Because something's going on, and we're being a part of it. It's kind of like here on earth, right? When somebody starts drumming, it's like, oh boy, sort of thing. And boom, we were right back in that exact same place, all of us. And then we come back, right? After we experienced it. And it was like, yeah, what the hell just happened, And it was because it was a part of what Sam Jess was experiencing. She was growing in this sense, and she didn't know who she was or anything else. She just wanted to experience these things that had been occurring to her, from that's a whole nother thing about stored memories from ancestors. When one passes, they leave basically those memories in their ancestors, the ones who are still living. And then, through different processes and experiences, they can become activated. And then they know that experience firsthand as though it happened to them. And so, once this happened, they had to do mother come along, and mother's, like the spiritual icon, and she's like, oh, we got to get ahead of this, because everybody has this anticipation about Sam Jess. And see, I see her as my buddy, and just like I do all of them, they're my family. But I knew that, she was special, but I really didn't care. And, now I start to find out it's coming, whether, she wants to see it or not. And so she had reached this point of spirituality that mother wanted to do a ceremony, to honor her, for her abilities. And so we go to this flat earth thing, so to speak, and we go into this this, it was almost like an egg sort of building. You see the top half from the land, and then once you get inside, it goes down below, and there's this big, like, platform or stage. And it was kind of funny because it was all about Sam Jess, and then mother's there going, yeah, you got to talk, you're going to do a speech. And she's like kind of elbowing me, like, sort of, and it's like, what am I gonna, who am I, right? I'm just this Homer from Earth, having this experience with these amazing beings. And because it doesn't matter, because we're all one and we're all connected. And so, I'm thinking, okay, great. I've done speeches all my life, and I always do. I go up there and introduce myself and basically ask, is there any questions? Because then it becomes a personal speech, where if you know your subject, you don't have to prepare, right? And so it's always worked out for me. Well, here I am with these beings from another place, and they're telling me, oh yeah, do a speech. And it's like, well, what the hell do I know? And I go, well, I know Sam Jess. So all this stuff is going through my head, when I'm going up there. And then, so it's like, here, I'm supposed to set the setting, for this ceremony that's going to take place for Sam Jess, and for her to be honored. And it's like, yeah, great, no pressure. And so I'm up there, and I see all these people, and they're all around, right? And so it's like I'm thinking, and suddenly it comes to me, this is mine. And I kind of look at mother, and she's just smiling, and she kind of gives me the nod, like, okay, I'm allowed to do whatever I want. And so I bring everybody up on the stage, and we all sit down in this large circle. And then I go up to the very first one that's there. I think there was like 10 of them or 12. And, she's Plagiaran. Almost all of them were Plagiaran that I could tell. Maybe a couple of them weren't, but they weren't that different. And so I get on my knees, and I get real close to her, and they're not like my family. They haven't known me. They know of me. And we're like a soap opera, I guess, to these other people. And so, I sat in front of this lady, and I'm kind of looking at her like this, like a dog does, when he's like curious, who are you, sort of thing. And I can see this lady in front of me is being a little uncomfortable. And then as close as I am to her too. And then it's like, I get a little bit closer, and she starts to calm down a little bit. She looks over at mother and stuff, and mother's smiling and everything. It's like, it's okay. So it's kind of an unspoken language that's going on. And so I just come close to her, and our foreheads touch, and we share. And this exchange that we had was just absolutely beautiful. And it wasn't something that I could have created or expected, but it was just, I was following the natural law that they're teaching me, in a sense. You do what you feel, not necessarily what you think, but what you feel. And so I did this with each one of them all the way around. And I think it was the greatest speech I ever said, because we all had this amazing connection, and there wasn't any words spoken and nothing else except for just contact. And then at that moment, it's like, okay, my part's over. I'm getting out of here. So I didn't even stay to witness Sem Jest's ceremony and what took place, because it wasn't my place. I felt, in my own self, it was like, so I introduced it and I walked away. But um, there, and there was these like beings that I saw around above that almost felt like, if I was to put a word to it, were angels. And because they were floating and they were like kind of transparent, and they were just like circling around, and it was amazing. And when I left the place, I went out, and as I'm leaving, it's like they created this for me. Here's a campfire all by itself with rocks around it. It was like, yeah. I was wondering if I do that, or if it was just there. And so I went and sat there to wait for them. And as I was, the other as the family came out, it was all over, and they all just sort of gravitated to where I was. They somehow knew where I was and such. And we kind of went into a ceremony. And to them, that is the ceremony. That is the tribal instinct of what spirituality is to them. And as we were doing that, again, those beings appeared. I'm asking Mother, so like, what's going on, right? And the way she explained to me, it's almost always cryptic, because I'll learn more and understand it later. And so she introduced it to me as that they were other beings that are always around us, and that, they come to us when we're in need, if we're open to them. And so I guess they just wanted to hang out and watch the ceremony, so to speak. But yeah, and, I asked them, and it gets real complicated. It's like, holy crap, guys, can't you just figure this out and be able to answer a question in a couple words? But each one of them started to talk about, as I'm asking them, they weren't real comfortable in expressing it, because I don't think that they felt like they could make the communication that I could understand about what spirituality is to them. But they started to give me all these different references, like music and all these different ways that they connect to what they feel is spirituality. But in the end, what it is, it's all, it's not that different from us, except for they do it without preparation. It's like instantaneous, and it's like with them at all times. And they have a source too, just as we do. We find several different sources, right, to feel like that's the one, right? Well, to them, source is source. There is no question. And that the process to get there is to find that self, that importance, the thing that you're expressing at that moment, because everything is present. There is no future, there is no past. It's all one thing going on all at the same time. So anyways, I'm in awe when they do these like sacred rituals and such. But
You know what? One thing, Z, I really admire about Mother is that she is very aware of the journey and the process.
mhm.
And I think that is why when they communicate to you, they communicate to you in a cryptic, it's in a cryptic way, as you were saying. You get little pieces of it, but I think that's intentional, because they want you to go through the process and have come up to self-discovery, discover the space in between, in other words.
Mhm.
And that makes it more powerful, and it makes it more you. It anchors it in you even stronger. And I believe that Mother is fully aware
Mhm.
of that. And she's that Mother is something else. Yeah, she actually came to me in a dream, and I was in a room with her, and there was a bunch of little kids in there. And she I told Barb, I says, well, that on the Matrix, that lady, that they went to go see the prophet lady. What was her name?
Oracle or
The Oracle, yeah. I said she kind of looks like her. She, and and she's real sweet, and I could tell that she was helping the kids to understand the Ploegerian ways, so to speak. Loving, respectful, transparent, things of that nature. And then I was thinking to myself, wouldn't that be wonderful if we did something like that here, where we taught our kids how to be loving, how to be respectful, how to interact with the other kids and be compassionate, give them like scenarios on how to do that, so that I really believe that if we did do that, the all of like some of the negative things that are going on the earth, and everybody says, well, we got to stop this, we got to do. All I hear is we got to stop this, but they don't do anything.
Yeah.
And I think that that's the thing. I think the thing is do exactly what Mother is doing. Teach them love, teach them respect, give them some, scenarios like, how would you feel if that happened? What do you think you should do if you see somebody, things like that. And eventually, I think, because they're young kids, right? They would grow up with that awareness, and then they'd have their kids, and they would do the same thing. And just through a 1 + 1 = 2, process of elimination and the ripple effect of that, eventually it would cover the whole world, because the old people would just die away and the new ones, you know what I mean? The new ones come in, and of course I love you, and you're awesome and you're beautiful. It would just be in their consciousness.
Yeah.
And I think that's the direction. What Mother's doing is a prime example, I think, of what I believe we should do.
Mhm.
And that would ultimately save the planet in a very loving way. Because, like, for example, this book, this book is contact. This is it. And the reason why I believe it's contact is because of my experience of contact. It's never been, here I am, it's always been, like Michael got me, took me by the hand, showed me, look, there's a UFO. Oh, wow, a UFO. Cool. And then 2 or 3 years later,
Yeah.
I'd be inside of a spaceship, and Michael would be sitting there, and they like put some kind of a crystal, a big long crystal or something down in my crown chakra, and I could feel it going up. But Michael goes first so that I could watch, so I wouldn't be afraid. And I go, does it hurt? And he goes, oh, it just feels a little funny, and then it did what it did. And I woke up on a gurney, and I was all done. Everything was cool. And I talked to the lady there, and I met a friend. His name was Bakhta, and he came in the form of a dog, so they wouldn't scare me. It didn't come to me in the form of like a gray alien or something with the dark eyes and everything.
Mhm.
And so my experiences with aliens at the beginning is they would like make their faces look funny, kind of clowny and stuff,
Uh-huh.
so that when I looked at them, I wouldn't be going like, oh God, that's an alien, But the one thing the things that I really admire about this book is how loving it is. And you cannot, in my opinion, have contact of this magnitude in a more loving, smooth transition, because another thing about this book is through the actions and the interactions. It doesn't, how like right now we're talking about perceptions based on our reality. Well, when you read this book, you get to see the perceptions and the realities being played in real life.
Mhm.
And so you get a sense, and the way it's written, of literally being there, and you're the one experiencing the reality. It's really not like you're not even there, really. You guys are doing this thing, but it's more like it's us there when you guys are interacting with each other. And then the other thing that's very strong about this, which I've always believed, how some individuals believe, there's good ETs and bad. I've never believed that ever, because the only reason why I've never believed it is because of my experience. I don't go out and read about these things. I experience them, and I've seen all different kinds. Purple ones that were very like they had angles in their bodies, like these sharp angles and stuff in them, and all different kinds, grays, and they were all extremely, extremely loving to me. I tried to open my eyes once when they came to me in the mountains to help me with an issue I was working on. And the little ones, I call them, which were the grays, they went, oh, 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 like that. And just by them going, oh, 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 it told me a whole story. That's all they had to do was, and I go, oh, I'm not supposed to open my eyes because I'm not ready yet. They're afraid that I might get freaked out. And,
Yeah.
so this book is exactly that. It's like, we don't want them to be freaked out. We're here. And look at all the different races that are working together inside of this book. All of them together, and they're getting along, and they're doing a good job, and they're a team,
Yeah.
And so just through the examples in this book, if we should be able, hopefully get some resonance or because that in itself, the example in itself, is like getting an adjustment. It's alive. Yeah, and it comes in and it does its magic, and it just helps people see, look, if somebody throws sand in your face, just go up there and say, oh, that kind of made me feel sad, are you okay, or whatever,
Yeah.
You don't have to throw sand back on their face again, you can make a choice. So that's what I love about this book. And
If I could add on to that,
yeah.
while editing this book, I read it 5 times going through it, and the second book, I can feel the energy from it. And because of the oneness, we are experiencing this too. And because of this, we are receiving energetic upgrades. I mean, I've noticed changes in myself. Z, you've noticed some things we talked about. Things that are coming online and, energetically for me, and different types of sensing. These books the words are very powerful.
Yeah.
Whether, I read these even out loud, my voice, and words hold that power. And this is all part of our transformation, of our ascension, our spiritual growth.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Pleiadians have done this before, haven't they? Helped other long ago.
Yeah. And I think both of you are absolutely right in so many ways and so many things, like you were talking about Lance, about the the parenting. And that's the way we used to do things. And, it didn't really change us. It just put us in a direction. And we've really lost that, where
Yeah.
outsiders and people we don't approve of are doing these things. And, there's room for all of it, but not in that way, I don't think. I think it is the parent's obligation to raise the child, right? And then the child takes off, from there. And they like, my God, look at my family, my brother's like totally ingrained in life as most people are. And here I am, his brother, and I'm totally bat crazy, right? I'm off on all my life, it went so many different directions, and we had the same parents, so, it's up to us at a certain point, but we get the foundation from them. And that, like, the way that they do it, is that they have multiple parents in a sense. They still have their biologicals and everything, but they don't really have to connect to any of them. They connect to all of them, and each of them are of value to them. But it's not like farming out the instruction. And in their way, they allow, because all their basics are covered, no matter what. So our, if we have house, shelter and water and food, then we're not just going to be content with that, because we're beings and we have thoughts and brains, and so we aspire to other things. And when it's not limited, to, oh, you need to go this way because this is where you're going to make money or something. It's all about the nature, nature's law or natural law, and you gravitate to those specific things. And like you said about the limitation of how they explain things to me, and it's kind of cool. And what I figured out is that if we have an intention to get from one place to another, like when mother tries to explain something to me, she shows me the goal, right? But she doesn't tell me how to get there. And
Oh.
yeah, and that's because no one can, just like us here, the journey is our perception, just like when people meet aliens or this or that. And everybody has their own perception. Is like when I was talking to the people that I call Grays, like one of the things that they told me was, I said, can I call you Grays? And it was sort of like, well, you can, but they go, like on here, we see everybody has a different version of gray, like they're robots or they're this or they're that. And they said, because their looks are common. And so when this is an experience to somebody, whatever it is that they didn't capture in their memory, they have to fill in. And so it gets distorted. And the ones that I were with are from what I understand, are basically the creators. So they're the oldest of all of them. But like they told me, the reason that there's, different descriptions of them is there are many races that look very similar to them.
Yeah.
And so we haven't defined what a gray would be, so to speak. And then so when she gives me these like cryptic lessons, in a sense, it's interesting because it's almost as though I'm speaking to another part of myself when I say I want to get there, and things just start to occur in front of me that are taking me on this journey or this learning experience. And it's like astral travel, you don't want to, like, if you want to teach somebody to astral travel, you don't give them anything except for the basics, because otherwise they start to follow you. And so they may never really genuinely learn that process of where they're going. They'll only be experiencing your journey. But once they have on their own, you can sit and you can have all these conversations about it, and you totally understand each other. So I think that's a good key. And then, people ask me, oh, ask them this or ask them that. And it's kind of funny. It's like, well, it's like, again, I use the example of astral travel, when I astral travel, I want to go find out who shot Kennedy. And then you're out of your body. And suddenly there's all this candy out in front of you that's way more interesting than anything you could have.
Oh, let's forget about that.
And so when I go on the ship, it's like I forget everything, because there's all this candy again for me to experience and to discover. And it's so fascinating. And it's the moment, you're living in the moment, because there's so much, it's like, which one am I going to take right now? And then, when you get there, it's like, okay, when I come back, and if I would go, like, say, one of the questions was about the pyramids. And so say I come back here on Earth, and I run over to the pyramids or whatever, and I go in there, I'll almost bet you that I will know what all that meant, just not by studying any of it, but
Yeah.
by having the experience of, oh, I've been there. And it just I become aware of it. It's almost like going back to my old house or something. I know where everything is, and I know what it does and its function. So yeah, and perception's a really big thing about experiences that people have with, like, I'm on board with you. But I understand that I'm only seeing a very small perspective, because
Yeah.
I'm seeing one race, one people, and in particular a family, and I'm starting to branch out, of course. I'm meeting others and such, but um, I believe, I know that memories come from pictures in our brain that are embedded into our brain when we see something. But we don't ever always see everything. We do, but we don't register it. And so wherever it is, we have to fill in those gaps that are missing in that
Yeah.
picture that we saw. So imagine that, and I mean, not that it's lying or anything, and it's believed to be true, and the majority is, of course, but our memories are just that, just memories. And so my opinion is that when somebody has an experience, it's like when the Indians first saw the boats coming to shore, and they had never seen a boat, so the boat never registered to them, and
Yeah.
they didn't see it. And so when you have this experience, imagine, if you have no real rounding or have ever faced fear or anything like that, we see the scary monster, all of a sudden you create everything around that,
Yeah. Exactly.
and so that's your truth. That's what you see. That's what you felt. And that's what you believed, right?
Yeah.
And so sometimes maybe that's what occurring. I can't say that though, because like I say, my experience is very limited, but it is extensive with one group of people.
Well, I'm very grateful for the spaces in between, as you mentioned,
Yeah.
because that's what solidifies reality.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is that space in between. You can do whatever you want here, and then when you get to here, it's like, whoa, I get it now. I got it, and nobody can take that away from you.
Yeah.
That's the power of that. Yeah, it's very powerful.
Yeah.
I was going to say, there was one more thing I wanted to say. Oh, one of the other, and then I had a question.
Yeah.
One of the things that's really awesome about the Pleiadian Diaries and the sequels is that most of the information we have now on alien races comes from way back in the 50s and all that stuff. And then the most recent information that we have comes from either hypnosis or things like to extract the information. So as you were saying, there's those gaps. Well, those types of modalities, they're very powerful and they work and all that, but in my opinion, I think there'll always be a little bit of a gap where there'll be some little pieces missing. Whereas your experience is like when I go next door and I ask my buddy, hey, can I get a cup of sugar?
Mhm.
And I go over there and I get the cup of sugar, and we might have a discussion or something, and then have some interaction, which will be beautiful. And then I come home and I write it down, what I experienced. That's hot off the grill. You can't get any better than that.
Yeah.
And like this, one thing I was telling Barb, I said, this book is the type of book that would normally be hidden away in some sacred temple somewhere for only certain eyes to see, and if the government had it, there'd be all these little black lines in there. And there's none of
Yeah.
that. There's none of that in this book,
Uh-huh.
And so my point is this: you can't get much pure from the source, than this experience. And of course, as you mentioned, many people will have different perceptions. But as Barbara mentioned, there's a lot of things that are going on in there through the words and through the interactions, which are alive and they have an energy and they come in and they make adjustments on the person. That's why, in my opinion, like, for example, when Barb was reading, she read, as she was editing this book a little bit, she was telling me a little bit about it. And I sat down in my room and I said, they have no idea what this book, what this means to the planet for us. This is for us. And I said, boy, if they only knew, I said, I hope to God, I hope they let him, bring that out, because we need to know that. And it's so loving that even the guy that, watched a lot of alien movies and sit there with a shotgun, that thing's one over there, even that guy's going to go, well, God, maybe they're not too bad, it kind of like softens the heart a little bit, and gives an opportunity for another perspective to see through the cracks, of what creates those little spaces that you're talking about from here to here. You see what I'm saying? Does that make sense? Yeah. Okay, good.
Hey, one of the things I want to say is in reading the material, I felt like, there was this veil that was coming down around me that was just blocking out everything around me as I was reading the materials. So there was like this experience that I was having. It's kind of like the cone of silence was coming in over the top of me, blocking out all external stimuli, and I was getting completely into the content and the stories and how it was conveyed and everything, the cadence of the messages, the cadence of the writing, everything was just really aided that experience. So from a physical standpoint, I'd have to say reading this book gave me a much different experience than I've ever had before in reading anything. It's only a few times I feel like I've experienced that through reading, and this was definitely one of them.
You guys are just way too crazy here. I mean, I love that response, and I'm so appreciative of that. But my intention to write this book, definitely authors don't make money, unless you're something super special or something. And I really didn't write the book for people except for my friends, because I'm having this experience that I felt that they would resonate to. And so I just kept diaries, right? And then I wrote the book, and I wanted to share it with my friends. And I was placing these nuggets in there that I knew were nuggets because they were very important to me to experience. And, it isn't the first time that I've been down this path, and it's not alien sense, but in the spiritual path and learning and understanding about becoming more. And so I figured that these little nuggets that I was leaving behind, there may be somebody out there that would hear it, right? Or gravitate to that and be able to see it, hear it, and experience it. And so, and then I thought to myself, the reason of publishing it is because, well, just by chance, if it ever made a profit, which it's close to now, all the profits are going to my charity here to save these little kids. Because like I say, I'm not trying to prove anything to anybody, and I really don't care about that. But I needed to share this because the experiences that I'm having are so unique. And one of the funny things is like one of the things that they resonate with is a saying that I gave them was like, this one time when Jesus was healing all these people, and when he was finished, he said to them, you, the people of this earth, can do all that I can do and more. And they like that, because I think that kind of sums up what they're offering me. And it's the experience, like there's more than one way to see something, and there's more than one way to get there.
Yeah.
And, there's multiple ways. And like I say, like, just like reading a book, right? Everybody reads the same book, the same words, yet they have a whole different story. It means something different to each one of those people, even though that it's the same thing. But our experiences are based on our past and the things that got us to where we are today. And so we assimilate that in that way, from our perceptions. And their message, is simple. It's you have to become love. And in my life, I kept discovering unconditional love. And each time I leveled up, right? And oh my God, this is it. I've plateaued,
Yeah,
seeing
yeah.
these kids, there could never be anything more. And then suddenly, boom, here I am. And like when, one of the things that I introduced to them was hugging. Well, first it was handshakes, and that was just I felt like I needed a greeting, right? Because I'd go on there and it was them there and me here, and we'd have these long conversations and everything, and there was really no connection. And so I taught them handshake, and it got to be an addiction. They really like that, and stuff. And they don't share a lot with me about themselves. They are there in the present, for whatever to happen, expect nothing and appreciate everything, sort of thing. And then I brought in, which I almost regretted, as I taught them to hug. And I'm not really a hugger or anything, right? And so it's gotten to the point where, like, when I'm gone, I go into the ship, and it's like, oh my God, it's been like 3 days. So everybody has to come in and greet me. And so these hugs, right? At first, it's like, oh crap, here we go. Because I know it's not just going to be, a hug and then hello. It's you embrace somebody, and immediately whatever you're thinking at the moment just fizzles away. And you have this experience that usually lasts, 10 or 15 minutes. And there's like 6 of them on this ship, right? It's like, don't you guys have anything else to do but hug, sort of thing. And but it's absolutely beautiful, because it's really meaningful. It's like each person has a different energy, and all those energies are like candy. They're all really great. They're all a little bit differently flavored, but it's like I just keep wanting more and more, and then finally, when it completes, it's like, okay, now what? So what are we doing today? But it's all based on love and vulnerability and your weaknesses. And you let it all go when you walk. I have a switch, I think. When I walk on the ship, I'm this, you already know everything about me. And there's nothing to hide. Ask me anything, sort of thing. And you're comfortable because there's no stress, because you're not trying to create anything, because it's already been created. But when I go off the ship, I have to flip that switch down, because if I acted the way I do with them here, I'd be eaten alive. I mean, you couldn't survive, in reality, because that's just not the way things are here. And it's not possible yet. It may be possible with a few people, but I have a really good feeling that every year from now, it's going to become more and more common.
Yeah.
So, because the source isn't never going to be the government for contact.
Yeah.
And, the source is all going to come from a unified consciousness, in a sense. And to me, that's their explanation of contact, is basically they'll handpick certain individuals of younger age and teach them and these things that I'm learning. I'm not a contactee. I'm too old. I would never fit the resume, as they told me. But I have provided a way of connecting that they hadn't experienced before. And so they're using that, in part of that program. And these people aren't to go back, and start to teach or become gurus or anything like that. They're just supposed to be what they were. And just by people witnessing them and experiencing them, they will see something different. And it's like the 100th monkey sort of thing, one plant and then another and another. And then they spread out for 10 and this one spreads out for 10 until in 50 years, we find this consciousness that we can accept that sort of contact, that physical contact, and changing our world in a sense.
Yeah, well, that's what this book's doing. It's going to create a ripple effect that way to start the process of that in a very and at a very slow, loving pace. And of course, as you mentioned before, perceptions is going to be what is going to be the regulator of how that acceleration works within each individual. But I have a kind of a silly question for you. You said that all the guys look like Fabio, so that means that they must be built, strong.
They are.
So do they exercise like us, or do they just have like the gene? It's like I can eat anything I want, do anything I want.
Well, there's a lot of answers to that question, but basically they all look like beach dudes, and it's funny, except for like the captain, he's much older than they are. And, but like Hans and Franz, it always cracks me up when I see them. And I name, some of them I've had to name because I can't really pronounce or anything like that. And they've already accepted that sort of thing. But I call like Hans and Franz because of the old Saturday Night thing, the two guys, it's like, because they crack me up, listening to them and talking to them. And I just can't help but smile when I'm around them. They're just so fun. But as far as exercise go, I just recently discovered like a room that they have where they can exercise. But I think it's a lot to do with like their food. It has something to do with like every time you enter the ship, you're cleansed in a sense of any harmful bacteria, not to the point where you're purified, because like they explained to me that our antibodies have to be exercised. And so as long as it isn't harmful, it's allowed. And then, but at the same time, they do, once they like, if they've been in certain positions for long periods of time and stuff, they'll go into this room and the exercises are quite different. I mean, on the ship, you wouldn't notice any difference as like being here, the gravity and everything, or you don't feel the movement or anything. But anytime there's like a stagnation that's within their body, they'll go into these rooms and they have like push and pull things, but nothing like we have. But they do have exercises where they're able to do just about anything that we would do. But it's more for fun and balance of their body than it is an actual exercise.
I think they can manipulate the weight of that exercise equipment just through their minds. Like Sam Jess could manipulate the gravity or her weight when you try to pick her up. Remember?
Yeah. I think it's a matter of intent. When you go in there, it knows what to resist on you or knows what to pull on you. I think it's like aware. The machines are aware. I mean, that's their electronics, like our computers, how we interface with our computers. Well, it would be as though our computers were interfacing with us instead of us with them. So, it's a mutual benefit.
Having that intelligence, that it's alive, the structure of the ship is like a living being. So it knows who you are, what you need, everything.
I believe it actually is a living being, but it's limited, sort of like, humans have a certain purpose and bees have a certain purpose, ants have a certain purpose. Well, these created entities that they have are specific to certain things. So, and they interact with us. No, that's just me thinking.
Well, I want you to keep thinking, and we're coming up on a little bit over an hour and a half, almost 2 hours now. And I just wanted to check with you guys and see what concluding thoughts you might have, or questions for Z, and see if there's anything else that we would like to cover in this episode.
Well, I have a concluding thought, or do you want to go first?
No, you go ahead, Barb.
Oh, okay.
Go ahead.
I just want to, I know other people will be watching this video, and I encourage as many people as possible to purchase this book, to purchase his Table of Ancients. This is his amazing life story, becoming a member of the Table of Ancients. These are the secret monks that hold all the esoteric knowledge of the world and possibly the whole universe. And the proceeds, all the royalties, what you consider the profits from the sale of these books, go directly to rescuing children from sex slavery that are destined to die. And I just want to thank everybody for helping the quest, ECSS, endingchildSexSlavery.org. And there's a donation button on there. And I just urge you to talk to as many people as you can. We need this funding for the rescue teams that are rescuing our precious resource, our precious children. And I just want to say thank you, Z, for sharing all this with us. And thank you for allowing me to be part of this and the way that you have. It is such a divine honor. Thank you.
Yes. I would say that, anybody who wants to, get in contact and with the ETs, and to have a different perspective of who they are, what they are. Like Z says, they're not going to eat you. So like Dan was saying, that cloak that he felt over him, I know exactly what he means I agree 100%. When you read that book, you just feel that over you, full of love, and you're just really, reading the book kind of energizes it, and it's just a beautiful feeling. And as Barb was saying, it's very important, for the kids too, and that's part of the ripple effect. Not only is going to help with contact, but it's going to help save a lot of precious, beautiful kids. And I know a lot of the kids that Z saves, are from a different country and stuff. It doesn't matter. That's, they're your kids. They're not kids from a different country. They're your kids. And so that's why it's important to get, as Barb mentioned, to go to the website and, give a love donation for the kids, and think of it like saving your kid. And if you want to go a step further, think about if it was your kid. And so that might give us the incentive to do what the loving thing would be to do. So anyway, that's my part. So I love you, Z, and I'm really grateful for you and for the experience that you've gone through, because it allows me to go through the same experience because of the oneness. You are me. So when you're going through it, I'm going through it. So it's a very loving thing to do. So don't ever, you said you were old, so they're not going to like teach you like they would the young kids, and they don't need to do that, because there's the book. It's doing the same thing. You're just opening the doorway to allow that to happen faster and easier and smoother. That's it. So that's it on my. So kudos to you, my friend.
You guys are all just way too kind.
We love you, Z.
Yeah,
We love you.
exactly.
We're all one. We're all the same.
And
So if
suck
you love
up,
me and I love you, then everybody loves everybody, right?
yeah, suck up that love, man, you're getting. One thing I learned about love is there's no there to get to. Just keep going, and just say, all right, here I am, and give them a big hug, man. And you deserve it. You worked hard for that. Took you a lot of years to be able to have this contact. It's not easy,
Mhm.
you know? So,
Well, we're really grateful. I'm really grateful to have this opportunity to listen to you guys ask questions and Z talk and get an opportunity to share with the world some of this experience from everyone. It's been quite an honor for me, and I feel for anybody an honor for anybody that would get a chance to listen to this, and especially to read the books. So I want to thank all of you today, Barbara, Lance, and especially Zazan for sharing this information with us today. And I'm Dan Brock, and that's it. So if you guys are ready to say goodbye, we can say goodbye.
Hey.
goodbye.
Blessings.
All right.
Love you guys.
Love you guys. Love you too. Bye-bye.
Hi, Annie.
All righty. All right. Bye-bye.
See you, Dan. It was real nice meeting you.
Hey.
Nice to meet you.
Hopefully we'll see you
All right.
again someday.
Okay. All right. Bye-bye.